I'm really glad you're here, and I want to welcome all of you here in Venue 1, as well as back in Venue 2 and Muscatine, and those of you worshiping with us online. If you would, pull out that big paper perforated in your worship folder there. That's a listening guide. We're going to run through that. I'm going to be reading some stuff. I'm going to have some things for you to write into that as we go today. Listen, this is a good series. This is a good day for you to be here. If you have ever had anyone who drives you crazy, and again, I ask, how many of you have in-laws? Yeah, you know what's funny is somebody came to me last week and they said, now wait a minute, you really shouldn't say that about in-laws, because what if you make all the in-laws really upset? And I said, hey, isn't it true that if you have in-laws, you are an in-law? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how do you know they're not thinking about you when we talk about crazy makers? Well, if you've ever had somebody who has driven you crazy, I got some stuff here today that's going to help you out. We're going to look at the basis for wise interactions with these crazy makers. And today we're going to talk about what wise people never do in their relationships. Now, let's read through this passage. This is kind of a long piece, but this is where we're going to work out of today. In your notes there, James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. If you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life, doing good works with humility that comes from wisdom. So what he did, he just described what an honorable life looks like. Now, watch what he does next, because now he's going to describe what a dishonorable life looks like. But if you are bitterly jealous and there is selfish ambition in your heart, don't cover up the truth with boasting and lying. What's he describing there? A big fat ego. Big fat ego. For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is, and now he's going to give us evidence of an ego, wherever there's jealousy and selfish ambition, now he's going to describe for us the result of that ego, there you will find disorder and evil of every kind. Now he's going to describe the opposite kind of life, the one that's lived without big ego. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It's also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. It's full of mercy and good deeds. It shows no favoritism and is always sincere. Now he describes for us the result. And those who are peacemakers, because when you have that in your life, you're going to be a peacemaker, will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. Listen, these verses teach you a whole lot about relationships and how to have happy ones. You're just not going to learn too many other places. So follow with me in your listening guide. Here we go. Introduction, the Bible on wisdom. Now, before we get into this, let me tell you the Hebrew word for wisdom, if you translate it out literally, it's a phrase. It is this: long-bearded one. That's the actual word for wisdom in Hebrew, long-bearded one. And it means somebody who is skilled in the art of living. They've been around, they got some miles under their belt, and they've learned how to live well. They've learned how to live wisely. All right, now, here we go. A, the Bible teaches that wisdom is a way of relating. So it has to do with what you do, not what you think. This is so important. Have you ever had a stupid thought that it was right there, it was going to come out, and then you didn't say it, and a little bit later you realize how stupid it is and you're glad you didn't say it out loud? Proverbs chapter 17, verse 28. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. People think you're really intelligent. See, a lot of people think wisdom has to do with head knowledge or academics or education, but you just got to watch the headlines to see the world's full of educated fools, right? Right? Most of our politicians have advanced degrees. What's that say? It's certainly not in math, right? If the math is probably honorary. But it's not about your diploma. It's about your disposition. All right, here's the next thing. The Bible teaches that wisdom shows up primarily, sorry for the typo, in my relationships. Wisdom primarily shows up in my relationships. That's what he wraps up with at the end of that passage we read. And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of what? righteousness. See, every day in relationships, you are planting seeds in the people around you. So you're either planting seeds of trust or distrust, or you're planting seeds of anger, or you're planting seeds of peace, or you're planting seeds of love, or you're planting seeds of suspicion and division. But every day in every relationship, you are planting seeds by your actions. Now, what we're going to do today, we're going to look at this section in this book of James, because it teaches us what not to do in relationships. And quite honestly, some of us, before we can learn what to do, we've got to stop doing some stuff, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But I want to remind you, as we go into this, in every relationship, half of the problem is you. And these things we're going to talk about, you should stop doing. I got to tell you, I've done every one of them. I'm no longer an apprentice in some of them. I'm a full-blown journeyman with everything. And so are you, because you've gotten really good at some of these bad things. But here's the deal. When you respond incorrectly to these crazy makers, it only makes stuff even worse. All right? So we're going to look at a concept, and we're going to look at what that concept looks like in real life. All right, number one, the concept. Wisdom that comes from God is pure. It's pure. What's he mean by pure? Well, it means uncorrupted, clean, untainted, unpolluted, clear, transparent. What's he talking about? Well, the word he would probably use today in American culture, instead of the word pure, would be the word integrity. That's probably the word he would mean, because that's what he's talking about. He's saying that the foundation of all good relationships is integrity, trustworthiness, honesty, highest moral character. Now, question. So why is this purity or this integrity, why is it listed first? Because wisdom starts here. It doesn't start here. Well, the Lord knows there's plenty of room up here for it, right? But it starts here. It starts down inside of us. You know, the reason it's listed first is because all relationships are built on truth. They're built on trust. They're built on being who you say you are. In fact, get this. No truth, no trust. No trust, no relationship. You know, if a woman is lying to her husband all the time, she may have an arrangement of marriage, but she does not have a relationship of marriage. The honesty is the bedrock of all relationships. And if you're lying to the people in your life, you don't really have a relationship with them. You probably never heard of Paul Ekman. Anybody ever see the show Lie to Me? Cal Lightman is the guy, his character is based on Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman is a specialist in lie detection. Paul Ekman says the average person lies one time for every 3 minutes of conversation. Yeah, you've probably not heard of Dr. Leonard Keeler. He co-invented the lie detector. In his lifetime, he tested over 25,000 people on the lie detector, and his conclusion was this: human beings are fundamentally and by nature dishonest. Newsflash, not. Yeah, that's not new news for us, right? The Bible tells us that 2,700 years before Keeler was born, Jeremiah 17, the human heart is the most deceitful of all things, desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? See, we lie to God, we lie to other people, we lie to ourselves, and I'll tell you what, we don't lie to anybody more than we lie to ourselves. We have this amazing ability to make up things and then tell it to ourselves and believe it knowing it's a lie. And then we act on it. We convince ourselves things we know are not true are true. The solution starts with integrity in the heart. Ephesians chapter 4. Stop lying to each other. Tell the truth, for we're parts of each other. And when we lie to each other, we're hurting who? Ourselves. All right, let's go to the next thing. What's it look like in practice? I won't compromise my integrity. I won't live a double life. I won't lie to you. I mean, trust is built on truth. Again, no truth, no trust, no relationship. Proverbs 2. God grants a treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity. Listen, you need a shield in your life to protect you against the crazy makers who come in to mess you up and get you involved in their drama all the time. So God says, I will be a shield against the things and the people who drive you crazy, but you yourself have got to walk with integrity if you're going to have my shield. If you won't walk in integrity, I'm not going to be your shield. Not going to happen. All right, second concept. Wisdom that comes from God is peace-loving. Peace-loving. James 3:17, but the wisdom from above is first of all pure, and it is also peace-loving. In other words, God's people are peacemakers, not troublemakers. Wise people are not surrounded by this continual dust-up of emotional dust and drama. Wise people don't carry a chip around on their shoulder daring people to knock it off. We don't do that. Wise people are not always looking for a fight. Fools, on the other hand, do what? They post on Facebook. Yeah, just go on the internet, right? Watch about any Facebook discussion. Foolish people post out of emotion, and they love to mix it up with others. Listen, that's just stupid. The Bible says wisdom is peace-loving. It's not always trying to provoke anger. Now, what's this look like in real life? What's this look like in practice? I won't antagonize your anger. That's what it looks like. I won't antagonize your anger. Now, next week, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to ask you this question next week. Think about it this week, because you'll need that person in mind for next week. But my question for you that we're going to look at next week is who's pushing your buttons? Next week, we're going to talk about how you take away those buttons from those people who love to punch them all the time, right? But I won't antagonize your anger. In other words, I don't push your buttons intentionally. I don't provoke your rage intentionally. I don't look for an opportunity to put a stiff finger or an elbow in your ribs and jab you emotionally. Why? Proverbs 20, verse 3. Any fool can start an argument. And we know that's true, right? Because most of us have. But the wise thing is to do what with the argument? Stay out of it. Now, during this series, we're going to have some fun with this. We're going to laugh at ourselves a little bit because we all use tools. We all have these little tricks in relationships we like to use, but they're actually counterproductive. I mean, they're harmful. They don't get you what you want out of the relationship, but what they do is they make you feel like you're positioned where you can legitimately blame somebody else for your own stupid behavior. Not cool. Not cool. You say, no, wait a minute. What do you mean? Well, when we talk about pushing buttons, how do you push somebody's buttons? How do you antagonize their anger? You continually criticize them. You use phrases like you never, you always. You know anybody that consistent? I wish I was that consistent to always do something, you know? Yeah. You continually correct them. You continually compare them. You continually mock them. And you know what their buttons are. And you like to push them. And you treat it like that door close button on the elevator. You know that door button on the elevator that closes the door actually doesn't do anything? Did you know that? That's there to make you feel like you're in control in a big metal box suspended in the air that you have no control over. Yeah. Yeah. All right, next thing, number 3. The concept. Wisdom that comes from God is gentle. James 3 again. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It's also loving. It's gentle at, circle this word, all times. Philippians 4:5. Let everyone see that you are considerate in, here, circle the word all again. Considerate in all you do. Listen, based on those 2 verses, I've decided I don't like the word all. So I thought, well, I wonder what the Greeks actually said. Since the New Testament was originally written in Greek, I thought, well, let's go see what the word all means in Greek. And so I went and I looked it up and did a little bit of research on it. Took a couple hours and checked it out and all the different kinds of old Greek and stuff. You know what all means in Greek? All? Yeah. Yeah. So you mean I have to be considerate when people are inconsiderate to me? Yep. You mean I have to be considerate to clerks who are jerks? Yep. You know, when people are rude to me, I don't get to be rude back to them? Well, if you're a fool, you can get back at them. But if you're wise, you will always be considerate. Romans 15. We who are strong must be considerate of those who are sensitive about things like this. We must not just please ourselves. We should help others do what is right and build them up in the Lord. So wise people are considerate even when the people around them are not. I stopped in at a cafe here a few days ago to get something to drink. I was needing a fix. You know, when you drink coffee, you're not really drinking coffee, you're using it. And I went into this little cafe. I was fourth in line in this cafe. You know, so that means there's 4 people, or 3 people anyhow, standing between me and my 20-ounce quad mocha, you know. And so I'm standing in line there and waiting to go in. And this older lady who was in her 70s comes walking up past all of us who are in line, pushes herself to the first place in line and orders food. Oh my gosh. You know? And we were not happy with her. Because now I went from being 4th in line to being 5th in line. That's the wrong direction. And so she ordered food, which they had to make. So I spent 10 minutes standing in line while this little cafe made her food. Now, after I ordered, I went out to sit down in the little cafe area and drink my coffee and check my email and stuff on my phone. And there was 1 seat open in the place. It was right next to her. Guess what was on that seat? Her stuff. So I went over and I just asked her if anybody was sitting there, and then I just proceeded to move her stuff off the seat onto the floor. Honest to God, I thought there was going to be spontaneous applause in the place when I did that. I kid you not. People are like, yeah, drop it on her feet, you know. And so I sat there and I was trying to check my mail, and I'm looking at her, and she's sitting there and she's holding her food in her lap, and she's got her cup in her hand, and she's just sitting there and she's just staring like this. Got that 1,000-yard stare. And so maybe she had a stroke or something, because I about did when she cut in front. And so I just leaned over to her and I said, hey. And she looked at me and I said, are you okay? And she just stared, kind of like at me but through me. And then she said, I put my dog down today. And she started, her eyes were filling with tears and her hands were shaking a little bit. And she said, my husband died 1 month ago today. I've never been alone before. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I sat there for the next 45 minutes and I listened to her and I asked her questions about her husband and her dog, and she told me funny stories, and I listened to her pain for a while, and when we were done I just asked her, I said, can I pray with you? And she was very ready to pray, and so I prayed with her. When the prayer was done, her demeanor had changed a lot. Now what's crazy was, an hour before that, I wanted to wedgie the old bag for cutting in line and getting between me and my coffee. Now, I made a mistake that we all make. The mistake is we react to what people say or do without understanding why they say or do it. Who was I thinking about? Was I thinking about maybe what her day had been like? No, I was thinking about I need a fix. I need 4 shots. I need them now. You know, right? I mean, it's what caffeine's for. Do stupid things faster. You know, that's what I did. But the first mistake we make is we don't understand. Listen, hurt people always hurt people. People who are not in pain are generally kind. People who are always in pain are generally unkind. Listen, if you don't get anything else, I'll tell you today, get this. Feelings are neither right nor wrong. They're just there, and we all have to deal with them. They're not facts to be argued. They're part of how we process information and how we make decisions. Feelings don't have to be attacked. They don't have to be questioned. We simply need to acknowledge them, because wise choices come after we process the feelings. Yeah, I processed my feelings, and then I felt like a dirtbag. But see, instead what we try to do with feelings is convince people that their feelings are right or wrong or stupid. How has that always worked out for you when you've tried that? That's how you get back a black eye, right? It doesn't work, right? So what does this look like in practice? I won't minimize your feelings. I won't minimize your feelings. Wisdom acknowledges feelings. It realizes they may not be based on a realistic interpretation of events, but still don't diminish them. Wisdom doesn't have to agree with somebody's feelings. It simply acknowledges that they feel what they feel and they're working through what they feel. Watch this from Proverbs 15. Kind words do what? Bring life. So here's a woman who just put down her dog, who lost her husband, who is alone for the first time in her life, who doesn't know what's going to happen next in her life. And I could have said to her, hey, back in the line. Oh, and I did say it in my head. I absolutely did say it in my head. Wasn't very wise. Wasn't very wise. All right, next concept, number 4. Wisdom that comes from God is willing to yield to others. It doesn't mean it compromises truth. It means it's willing to yield to others in certain cases. Watch this again, James 3. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It's also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. In other words, it's open to reason. That word we translate yield into the English from the Greek language is eupathes. This is the only time this word is used in all the Bible. And what it means, it has this idea, it's kind of a word picture for the Greeks. Let's say you're out driving out one of our little one-lane country roads out here, and you come up to a bridge, and it's a one-lane bridge. And as you're approaching it, there's a triangular sign that says yield to oncoming traffic. So you drive on past that bridge, you wait your turn, you drive on past the bridge, and then a little bit later you're coming back into town, you approach the bridge from the other side, and you see a triangular sign on that side. What does it say? Yield to oncoming traffic. That sign is on both sides of the bridge. So as long as both parties yield, nobody gets hurt. That's the idea behind this word. It's a great word for wisdom in relationships. It means you're not stubborn. It means you're not pig-headed. It means you don't demand your own way. You're not defensive. It means you choose not to have the attitude that says, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up. It means you choose not to have the attitude that says, when I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Now how do you know if you have that kind of quality in your life? One of the main ways you know is you learn to listen. You're not what I call a yabbit. You know what a yabbit is? Yeah, we've talked about this. A yabbit is a person who their first response to everything said to them is, yeah, but. Yeah, but. You know what a yabbit's? Yeah, they're foolish because they don't actually listen. As you're talking, they're already figuring out in their head how they're going to rebut whatever you've said, even though if you took their position, they would still rebut you. Because that's their thing. See, the wiser you are, the better listener you're going to be. The more foolish you are, the more of a yabbit you're going to be. All right, let's look. What's this look like in real life? I won't criticize your suggestions. I won't criticize your suggestions. You know what? Because a wise person listens, they can learn from anybody. Isn't it true? Wise people know even a broken clock is right twice a day. So it's possible for the yabbits in your life to be right twice a day. Possibly. And it's possible for you also to be wrong. Proverbs 18:15. Intelligent people are always ready to learn. Their ears are open for knowledge. Listen, I have spent most of my life hanging out with people I totally disagree with. But I hang out with them because I want them to come to know Christ, or I want to help them grow in Him. That means I have heard a lot of the most stupid, asinine theological statements you could ever hear. What do? You do something I learned from my mom. My mom raised 5 young fools into grown men. You know what she would do? She'd smile and nod. She'd let us be stupid. And then eventually we'd come back and ask her what went wrong. Why does this hurt? See, what I've learned is when I let people have their peace, when I let them say their stuff, eventually when the time is right, I'm able to say to them, well, listen, let me tell you what I've kind of learned on that. Here's what the Bible says. And then when I talk to them, almost universally, they all come back and they go, I hadn't really thought of it that way. That's good. I need to consider that. But if you try to interrupt people as they're saying their piece, if you try to interrupt them, if you try to fight them point by point, you're just being a fool. You're just pushing their buttons, and it's not going to get better. All right? 5th thing. Wisdom that comes from God is full of mercy and good deeds. James 3:17. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It's also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. It is full of mercy and good deeds. See, if I'm going to be wise, I maximize mercy. I'm going to be full of mercy. I'm going to be full of good deeds. In other words, it's wise to show grace to people who mess up, right? Nobody likes being told they're an idiot, especially when they've just messed up and it's quite clear that they are. I mean, they don't need you telling them what they already know. When they blow it, when they sin, when they fail, it's wise to show mercy. It's wise to cut people slack because guess what? Mr. Perfect, Miss Perfect, there's going to come a day when you're going to need some slack cut for you, right? And it's going to be given to you just like you gave it to others. You want a little slack when that day comes? I mean, think about this. Who is the wisest being in the universe? God. Who's the most merciful being in the universe? God. Think there's a little connection there? Think there might be a reason for that? Yeah. Fools are judgmental. Wise people are merciful. All right, so what's this look like in real life? I won't emphasize your mistakes. I told you so is not a phrase I'm going to keep in my vocabulary. Proverbs 17:9, love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it does what? Separates close friends. Dwelling on it gives you exactly the opposite of what you're looking for, which is a close relationship. So wise people are merciful. See, wise people don't rub it in, they rub it out. They let it go. All right, number 6, the concept. Wisdom that comes from God is impartial and always sincere. Circle the last 2 words, always sincere. That last phrase, those 2 words can be translated out of the Greek that the New Testament was written in. It can be translated never hypocritical or not hypocritical. Now, what does that mean? Well, you know, the Greeks invented theater for the most part. Well, we give them the credit for it. Comedies and tragedies and so forth. And in Greek plays, you might have one person playing all the roles in the play. Or you might have 2 people playing all the roles in the play. And so what they would do is they would go back behind the curtain or whatever, the wall. They would go back behind where you couldn't see them. They would change a coat and they would come out and hold a mask up in front of their face. And they would play that person's part. And you just ignored the fact that all the characters sounded like the same person. Kind of like when you're watching translated TV, you know, where they dub it. Right? Just ignore that. And so that person would play this role, and then he would run back, change coat, pull on a different mask, and come out and play a different role. And he would run back, change coat, come back out. You know what that actor, you know what the term is for that actor in Greek? Hippokrates. That sound familiar? It's the word we get hypocrite from. It's someone that always wears a mask. It's someone that has more than one face. It's someone who's always playing a role, always wearing a mask, never who they appear to be. See where we're going with this? When you're impartial, when you're always sincere, you're never wearing a mask. You're always who you are. People can trust that. The word we'd use today would probably be authentic rather than sincere, but authentic. All right, what's that look like in real life? Well, straightforward. I won't be a hypocrite. I'm not going to wear a mask around you. I'm not going to fake it. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to take advantage of you. I'm not going to deliberately mislead you. See, his point is this. Fools are fakes. Wise people are the real deal. They're who they are. They're authentic, warts and all. You see their imperfections. They don't hide those things from you. What you see is what you get. Man, watch this lament in Psalm 12:2. Everyone lies to his neighbor. Their flattering lips speak deception. What's Jesus say? How does Jesus describe how we're supposed to live? He says, just say yes and no. When you manipulate words to get your own way, what happens? You go wrong. Can I tell you something I've observed? I love social media. There's more social media out there than you're aware of. Most people, when you mention social media, they think of Twitter or MySpace or Facebook. There's like 4 or 5 dozen just in North America that you can get involved in. My master's degree actually had a concentration. I have a concentration in social media. But social media, again, Facebook is just one of those examples, actually sets up relationships to be phony. It's artificial. You only show people what you want them to see, and then they come in and give you this phony affirmation of what you phonily showed them. And your friend list, it's filled with phony, fake friends all the time. Listen, as your pastor who loves you, man, if you don't wise up, if you don't learn some godly wisdom, you're going to go through your entire life making the same relational mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over again. You are always going to be searching for a future ex-spouse. You're always going to be looking for a new family member to be estranged from. And you're not going to get what you want out of that relationship. An intimate, soul-satisfying relationship, the kind God made you to have. This book, the Bible, is absolutely packed full of relational wisdom. Jesus solved your biggest problem on Easter weekend. He took care of your sin problem. He came to give you eternal life. He also came to show you how to live in your daily life now too. You know, if you don't have a Bible, there's a bunch back there by the Welcome to Adventure sign. And they all look like this. They say, I can't hold it out far enough to see it. New Believer's Bible, okay? And you can just stop by. You don't have to ask anybody. Just stop by and pick up one or two. Pick up one for each person in your family. We'll get more. Take them. They're free. But if you'll stick with me for the next few weeks as we go through this, I'll tell you what, I'm going to help you revolutionize your relationships. And my goal for this series is that you will learn what God says to do when you're dealing with the things that make you crazy. And we're going to bring a lot more peace and joy into your life. Would you bow your heads with me? Father, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you that you want us to be wise, and so you describe for us what wisdom looks like. You don't want us to be fools, and just to make sure we get it, you show us what fools look like. Not that we really need to see it, because we live it. But Father, I pray that each person here today will make a commitment to learning what your word has to say about how to strengthen our good relationships and how to heal our broken ones. Father, help us to deal with the crazy makers in our lives, but Father, help us today to start with us. Because in our life, Father, we are the king or queen of crazy. Father, help us to be wise. Thank you for Jesus who came, who brought us forgiveness, who brought us the kind of grace he wants us to show to others. And Father, who gives us wisdom through your word. And it's in his name we pray. Amen.